tough action.
Sifu is that game that you think looks super cool, that would be fun to just run through its levels and lay the smackdown on thugs, only to get absolutely destroyed at the start of the first level. This was my introduction to Sifu, a game that I was really looking forward to playing due to its flashy and refined kung fu gameplay. Little did I know what I was getting into, with some parts of the game, namely Shan, the second boss fight, becoming the first real barrier that seemed insurmountable. I must have died from that guy like, 5 to 10 times. I've lost track, but the point is, I finally did beat him, and thanks to hours and hours of studying the game's various mechanics, I finally bested the second boss and had little trouble getting through the rest of the game. Throughout all the deaths, which there were many by the way, I deliver you my review of Sifu, one of the most rewarding and fun little video games I've played in a long while. Sifu is all about the action with very little emphasis on the story. What's here in the story is totally serviceable and actually quite compelling, as you play an unnamed man or woman of your choosing, out to take revenge on the series of thugs that took the life of your father and attempted to kill you in a series of events that took place many years in the past. Because you were brought back to life by a mysterious talisman, you have a unique advantage over every enemy in the game, and can now get your revenge on those who attempted to kill you. Now a bright and motivated 20-year-old, you set off on a city-wide rampage to take down the 5 targets that brutalized your family many years ago. It is a typical tale of revenge, and although the game gives you plenty of motivation to enact that revenge, I would have liked to see more story elements incorporated here. There are bits of story pieces thrown into the collectibles in the game, which you can view and piece together on a board, and view some additional details of each of the 5 targets and the environments they exist in. The cutscenes are done exceptionally well here, and do a good job of displaying expressive facial animations with compelling action scenes. The love and respect for iconic kung fu scenes permeates throughout this game in every corner. Thankfully, you and the player get to play the game's craziest action scenes, and the gameplay far outperforms every action cutscene in the game. Expect to enact the famous scene from iconic film Old Boy, as you smash in skulls with bats and pipes in this side-scrolling section through decrepit apartments. Witness nightclubs bustling with neon energy and pounding bass to be enveloped in thick, suffocating flames, and a towering museum to transport you inside its paintings as you deliver blow after blow to every enemy in your path. The style here is outrageous and is gorgeous to watch. The level design here is compelling, as each stage features some truly incredible moments and set pieces for your Pak Mei Kung Fu to shine. This particular brand of Kung Fu is very aggressive, and is more akin to aggression and subduing foes on the floor, as the game's camera and sound effects highlight the brutal ferocity to every punch, kick, takedown, and throw. Sifu has 5 levels, and each of them are all ripe with excellent attention to detail and style, and each level is very different from one another. Focusing on a particular element, each level introduces unique arenas and play spaces that vary the flow of each level considerably. I need to mention, you are going to be replaying each level over and over again, as each time you die, you gain a year to your life. Thanks to that talisman that resurrected you when you were a child during the attack on your family, you can resurrect, but at the cost of gaining a year, or numerous years to your life upon resurrection. Each following death will add to your death counter, meaning if you died when your age was 22 and your death counter was at 2, you would age 2 additional years, putting you at age 24 once resurrected. If you keep dying without lowering your death counter, you will quickly see your age increasing more and more, putting you at the danger of dying permanently once you've died in your 70s. You can offset this by redeeming your experience points and level score earned from defeating enemies at shrines, and by defeating certain powerful enemies in each of the levels. But if you finish a level at old age, you might want to heavily consider running through previous levels to attempt at finishing them at a much lower age, as you must finish all of the game's 5 levels before your final death in your 70s. Because you may hypothetically finish level 3 in your 60s, going back to replay earlier levels so that your age is sufficiently low enough to help you get enough breathing room to clear level 4 would be the best course of action, as your lowest age run through your most current level will be the one that carries over. Like I have stated at the start of the video, This game is very challenging, and don't expect a walk in the park with this game, as there is no other game quite similar to it. The game's combat is the meat and bones to Sifu, and if you are not a fan of it, well, then just walk away from the game, because this is what the game is all about. Players can string together a variety of light and strong attacks together with ease, as well as dodge and block. The game's controls are very intuitive and easy to get the grasp of, as you are only primarily operating just a selection of the commands available to you. Players can parry enemy attacks by hitting the block button the moment before an enemy strikes, allowing you to stun them and get some additional hits in worry-free, or initiate a throw. Holding the block button is essential in this game, as you can block most anything in the game without chipping away at your health, unless an enemy uses sharp weapons to attack, or if they use a power strike of their own, indicated by their attack emitting a red aura. Every person in the game, including your own playable character, has a structure bar, which fills up after each hit lands. The goal is to make sure you knock out every enemy by getting rid of their health bar, or by dealing enough damage to them with raw attacks and successful parries to break their structure bar, leaving them completely exposed, giving you the opportunity to continue extending your pummel party or taking them out with a stylish finisher. Players need to be aware that they have their very own structure meter to manage, as having your own meter max out leaves you completely exposed to enemy attacks for a brief moment. Attacks on your character, whether blocked or not, all contribute to the buildup of your structure gauge, so if you find it is almost full, dodge out of the way and try to increase your distance from the enemy or boss to make your bar deplete. Players have a focus gauge that fills up through each successful attack, block, and parry, and can be used to slow down time and attack your opponents with a strong blow. These attacks are essential in boss fights, as chaining these moves together with standard attacks will evaporate their health bars with proper use. Dodging is the most important component to this game, as Sifu rewards players who dodge effectively, as the enemies become completely vulnerable upon successfully dodging their attacks. Players may simply block by holding the block button, but can also dodge upward to avoid leg sweeps, or downwards to hits to your upper extremities. These swift dodges can be done by holding the block button and hitting up on the joystick or up key on the PC to dodge the leg sweeping attacks, or by holding block and hitting down on the joystick or the down key on PC to engage in a swift duck to evade torso or head targeted hits. Learning to weave in and out of enemy attacks is the fastest way to success, and once you have this down, the game really starts to click and becomes incredibly rewarding. This is how I got past the big roadblock I mentioned earlier regarding the second boss fight. Study enemy attack patterns, evade accordingly, and punish. Rinse and repeat. Get this down and you will master Sifu. The player gets access to a variety of weapons, including bats, pipes, sticks, knives, swords, bottles, and more by picking these weapons up throughout the levels. Weapons are very powerful in Sifu, so use them when you can until you can't anymore. These weapons are your strongest tools in your arsenal of attacks, so make sure to take advantage of these weapons while they last, and keep an eye out for these in levels as you explore. In addition to the weapons, you will also come across numerous collectibles you can pick up in each of the 5 levels in Sifu, with some items able to unlock certain goodies in other levels. Be sure to refer to your collectibles board to see what items can be used where. Because you will be rerunning levels over and over to finish at a young age, it's best to also keep your eye out on these items that can potentially make your playthroughs more manageable. You will also be unlocking shortcuts throughout your progression through each of the levels, so it is wise to use them to focus on maintaining a low age to get to the boss. Keep in mind, however, that many of these shortcuts will bypass much of the level, preventing you from getting some experience points that can be redeemed for extra abilities. In Sifu, players can redeem their experience points or level score at the game's shrines, which are all located throughout the levels. Players have around 25 skills that they can purchase with their experience points, and although certainly helpful, these aren't skills that will carry you through the game. These skills are here to embellish your attacks or to be used in certain situations, like being able to parry once knocked to the floor, or to position yourself on the other side of an enemy with the invert throw. If players want to purchase a skill forever to keep on all future playthroughs, the player must purchase the skill a total of 6 times to unlock it for good. On general tips and tricks on how to play this game like a kung fu master and which skills I recommend to keep, look at my tips and tricks video, linked in the description.
No way! No.
Each of the game's 5 stages yields some truly epic boss encounters that get progressively more difficult the further into the game you get. Each boss has their own unique fighting styles and attacks, making them very different from one another. These encounters are the most demanding and take immense levels of concentration, as each boss has 2 stages that vary the fights considerably. Again, if you're having a difficult time with the boss fights, consider rerunning older levels to attack them at a younger age, giving you more time to develop strategies to react to their attacks and movements. This is also an element of the game that many players will strongly dislike, because of the game's nature to have you retread old territory over and over until mastery. Fatigue may set in for players unwilling to cope with the game's rigid structure. There is no randomization to each return to these levels, making each return feel exactly as they always have been. In addition, the camera is something you will be fighting a lot, as the constant zooming in and out when engaging in finishers doesn't pan wide enough to accommodate all the action taking place, and players will often be hit from an enemy off screen because of this. In the end, Sifu is all about patience and perseverance. There is no easy button to help you get through the game. No cheat codes, no hand-holding here, nothing like that. The game demands your total focus and mastery to get to the end credits, and if you have the patience and drive to seek its finale, you will rejoice at the roller coaster of emotions this game gives to you.
I have spent 8 long years preparing for this.
Each roadblock seems insurmountable, too tall in order to complete and too challenging to conquer, but perseverance, just like the art and discipline of Kung Fu itself, is needed to complete the game. If you are among the gamers out there that don't mind brutal, punishing games that demands your focus and attention, this game may make it into your favorite games list, as it did mine. Although this certainly is not for everyone, those willing to take the time to master its mechanics, just like any art for that matter, will reap the rewards and satisfaction of seeing it through to its end.